I was 60 years old when I realized my son was planning to steal my life. Not all at once, you understand. Not with a gun or a threat. No, Robert was far too clever for that. He did it the way water carves through stone, slowly, patiently, one gentle erosion at a time. By the time I understood what was happening, I was already standing on ground that had worn dangerously thin beneath my feet. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Hello. My name is Elizabeth Sterling, though most people call me Liz. I live in a small brick row house in the Fishtown neighborhood of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It's not much: 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen that still has the original 1950s tiles, but it's mine. Or at least, it was supposed to be. I taught 2nd grade for 32 years at Franklin Elementary School, just 4 blocks from my house. I never made much money, but I loved those children. I loved their gap-toothed smiles and their impossible questions, and the way they'd run to hug me in the grocery store years after they'd left my classroom. Richard, my husband, used to joke that I'd raised half the neighborhood, one spelling test at a time. Richard died 2 years ago. Pancreatic cancer. 4 months from diagnosis to funeral. We'd been married for 35 years, and then he was gone, and the house became very quiet. People warned me about the silence. They said it would swallow me whole, that I'd need to fill it with television or music or constant visitors. But I found something different in that quiet. I found a kind of peace I hadn't known I was missing. I could drink my coffee slowly in the morning without rushing to pack lunches. I could read entire books in one sitting. I could eat dinner at 5 or at 9 or skip it entirely if I wasn't hungry. I wasn't lonely. Not exactly. I had my routines. Every Tuesday and Friday, I walked to the Italian market on 9th Street to buy fresh vegetables. Mr. Johnson always saved me the best tomatoes, the ones he kept in a separate basket under the table. Mrs. Kelly at the flower stand would slip an extra stem of lavender into my bouquet without charging me. On Thursdays, I volunteered at the library, reading to preschoolers. On Sundays, I had coffee with my neighbor, Sally Henderson, a woman in her 70s who'd lived next door for 40 years. My days were small, but they were mine. The house itself held Richard everywhere I looked. He built the shelves in the living room with his own hands. He painted the bedroom walls that soft blue I'd admired in a magazine. He planted the white rose bush in the tiny backyard, the one that bloomed every June without fail, filling the air with a scent so sweet it made my chest ache. I kept his coffee mug on the 2nd shelf above the sink, the blue one with the white flowers around the rim. It had cracked once years ago, and I'd glued it back together so carefully you could barely see the seam. I never used it anymore. It just sat there, a small monument to all the mornings we'd shared. Robert, my son, lived about 40 minutes away, King of Prussia. He worked as an engineer for some tech company I could never quite understand when he tried to explain it. He was 32 and married, always busy with projects and deadlines, and things that kept him from visiting very often. I understood. Young people have their own lives to live. We spoke on the phone every few weeks. Brief calls. How are you feeling, Mom? Any problems with the house? Are you eating enough? The questions were kind, but they always felt a little hurried, like items on a checklist he needed to complete before moving on to more important things. I didn't mind. I'd raised him to be independent, to build his own life. That's what good parents do, isn't it? We let them go. Everything changed on a Tuesday in early October. I remember because it was market day, and I'd just come home with 2 bags of groceries, apples, from the orchard upstate, fresh bread, a small bunch of chrysanthemums in deep orange and gold. I was putting the apples in the fruit bowl when I heard the knock. Robert stood on my doorstep in his work clothes, a gray button-down shirt and dark slacks. He was smiling, but there was something tight around his eyes that I couldn't quite read. "Mom, I was in the neighborhood for a client meeting. Thought I'd stop by." "What a nice surprise," I said, stepping back to let him in. "I just made coffee. Would you like some?" He followed me into the kitchen, his eyes moving around the room in a way that made me suddenly self-conscious. Was the floor clean enough? Had I left dishes in the sink? I poured him coffee in one of the white mugs, not Richard's blue one, and we sat at the small kitchen table. For a few minutes, we talked about normal things. His work, the weather, the way the leaves were just starting to turn. Then he set down his mug and leaned forward slightly. "Mom, I've been thinking. This house is a lot for you to manage on your own." I blinked. "It's not that big, sweetheart. Just 2 bedrooms. But the stairs, the maintenance, the yard." He gestured vaguely toward the back door. "What if something happens? What if you fall and no one's here?" "Sally's next door," I said. "And I'm only 60, Robert. I'm not an invalid." I know. He held up his hands in a placating gesture. "I'm not saying you are. I just worry. You're here all alone, and you're not getting any younger. Have you thought about what happens in 5 years? 10 years? Something cold settled in my stomach, but I pushed it away. This was my son. He loved me. He was just concerned. "I'm fine for now," I said carefully. "When the time comes that I can't manage, we can talk about it." He nodded, but his jaw was set in a way I recognize from when he was a child and didn't get what he wanted. "There's also the financial aspect," he continued. "This house is worth a lot now. The neighborhood's gentrifying. You could sell, move somewhere smaller and cheaper, have money left over to live comfortably. You wouldn't have to worry about expenses." "I'm not worried about expenses." My voice came out sharper than I intended. "Your father and I planned carefully. The house is paid off. I have my pension and Social Security. I'm fine. But are you really keeping track of everything?" He leaned back, his tone shifting to something softer, almost gentle. "I mean, have you checked your accounts lately? Made sure everything's in order?" "Of course I have. It's just, and don't take this the wrong way, Mom, but I've noticed you've been a little forgetful lately." I stared at him. "Forgetful? Last month, when I called, you didn't remember we'd talked 2 days before. We talk every few weeks, Robert. Sometimes the calls blur together. And you left the stove on last time I visited." I opened my mouth to deny it, then stopped. Had I? I'd made tea. Had I turned off the burner? I thought I had. I almost always did. "That was one time," I said slowly. "I'm not trying to upset you." He reached across the table and patted my hand. His palm was warm and dry. "I just want to make sure you're safe. That's all. Maybe we should look at your finances together, make sure everything's organized. And maybe just to be safe you should see a doctor. Get a checkup. Memory issues can be a sign of." "I don't have memory issues." The words came out too loud. I pulled my hand back. Robert stood, picking up his mug and carrying it to the sink. He rinsed it carefully, set it in the dish rack. "Okay, Mom. We don't have to talk about this now. I just want you to think about it." He kissed the top of my head. "I love you. I'm just looking out for you." After he left, I sat at the table for a long time, staring at the bowl of apples I'd bought that morning. Their skin was perfect and red and unblemished. I tried to remember if I'd really left the stove on. I tried to remember our phone call from 2 weeks ago. The details were fuzzy, But that was normal, wasn't it? Everyone forgets small things. That night, I made myself dinner: grilled chicken and steamed broccoli, and washed the dishes carefully, checking twice that the stove was off before I went to bed. I lay in the dark for hours, listening to the house settle around me. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. A car drove past, its headlights sweeping across my ceiling. I thought about Robert's face when he talked about the house's value. I thought about the way his eyes had moved around my kitchen, like he was taking inventory. And I thought about Richard's blue mug on the shelf above the sink. The one with the crack I'd so carefully mended, the one that held together even though it had been broken. I didn't know it yet, but that crack was about to appear in everything. Robert started visiting every week. At first, I told myself it was nice. A good son, checking on his mother. He'd arrive on Saturday mornings with coffee from the fancy place near his apartment, the kind that cost $6 a cup. He'd ask about my week, help me with small tasks around the house, stay for lunch. But something felt wrong. I couldn't name it, but it sat in my chest like a stone. He began moving things. Small things. My reading glasses would appear in the bathroom when I'd left them by the couch. The TV remote would be on the kitchen counter instead of the coffee table. My house keys would be hanging on a different hook. "Did you move my glasses?" I'd ask. "No, Mum. You must have put them there and forgotten." I didn't. "Well, I certainly didn't touch them." He'd smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Maybe you should start keeping a list. Help you remember where you put things." The doubt crept in slowly, like water under a door. One Saturday, I came home from the library to find my front door unlocked. Not just unlocked, standing slightly open, a 1-inch gap letting the November cold seep into my hallway. I stood on the porch, my heart hammering. Had someone broken in? I pushed the door open carefully, listening for footsteps, for voices, for any sign of an intruder. Nothing. Everything inside looked untouched. My purse was still on the hall table. The television was still there. Nothing missing. I checked every room, every window, every lock. All secure except that front door. I called Robert, my hands shaking. The door was open when I got home. Wide open. I don't understand. I always lock it. Always. There was a pause on the other end. "Are you sure you locked it when you left?" "Yes." I specifically remember turning the deadbolt. "Mom." His voice was gentle, patient. The way you'd speak to a confused child. "You've been under a lot of stress. It's easy to think we've done something when we haven't. Our minds play tricks sometimes." "I locked it, Robert." "Okay. I believe you believe that. But maybe just to be safe we should think about getting you one of those automatic locks. The kind you can't forget to engage. And maybe we should talk to your doctor about these memory concerns." I hung up feeling hollowed out. Had I forgotten to lock the door? It seemed impossible. I'd locked that door thousands of times. It was muscle memory, as automatic as breathing. But I couldn't prove it. I had no witness. No way to know for certain. I started writing things down. I bought a small blue notebook and kept it in my purse. Every time I left the house, I wrote the time and what I'd locked. Front door deadbolt and chain. Back door checked. Stove off. Lights off. The list made me feel both safer and more pathetic. The visits increased. Robert had a key to my house. I'd given it to him years ago for emergencies, and he started using it. I'd be in the kitchen making lunch, and suddenly he'd be there, letting himself in without knocking. "Just checking on you," he'd say. He began commenting on things. The expired milk in my refrigerator that I knew I'd bought 3 days ago. The bills on my counter that he said had been sitting there for weeks even though they'd arrived yesterday. The appointment card from the dentist that I'd supposedly missed, though I had no memory of making an appointment at all. "This is serious, Mom," he said one afternoon, standing in my kitchen with a handful of my mail. "You're losing track. What if you forget to pay your utilities? What if they shut off your heat in the middle of winter? That won't happen." It could. It does all the time to people who aren't managing their affairs properly. He set the mail down and pulled out a chair, sitting across from me. "I think we need to talk about power of attorney." My stomach dropped. "What?" "Just temporary. Just until we get you sorted out. I could help manage your bills, make sure everything's paid on time. You wouldn't have to worry about keeping track of all these details. I can manage my own bills, Robert." "Can you?" He gestured at the counter. "Because it doesn't look like it from where I'm sitting." I wanted to argue, but the words stuck in my throat. The truth was, I was starting to doubt myself. The unlocked door. The moved objects. The things he said I'd forgotten. What if he was right? What if something was wrong with me? "Let me think about it," I said finally. He smiled. "Of course. Take your time. I just want to help." 2 weeks later, he brought a lawyer to my house. I didn't know she was a lawyer at first. Robert introduced her as Patricia, a friend who worked in estate planning. She was in her 50s, professionally dressed, carrying a leather briefcase. She smiled warmly and complimented my home. We sat in my living room, me on the couch, Robert and Patricia in the 2 armchairs. Patricia pulled papers from her briefcase and spread them on the coffee table. "Elizabeth, Robert has shared some concerns about your ability to manage your finances and healthcare decisions," she said. Her voice was kind but firm. "What we're proposing is very standard. A durable power of attorney for finances and healthcare. It just means that if you're unable to make decisions for yourself, Robert can step in and help." "I don't need help making decisions." "Of course not." She smiled. "This is just a precaution. Most people your age have these documents in place. It's responsible planning." Robert leaned forward. "Mom, remember last month when you couldn't find your checkbook? You were so upset. With this in place, I could handle those stressful things for you. You could just enjoy your life without worrying about paperwork." I looked at the documents on the table. The print was small, dense with legal language I didn't fully understand. Words like principal and agent and fiduciary duty swam before my eyes. "I should read through this carefully," I said. "Maybe have my own lawyer look at it." "Absolutely," Patricia said. "That's very wise. Though I should mention that hiring another lawyer will cost you several $100s for basically the same advice I'm giving you for free. But it's entirely your choice." Several $100s. I thought about my bank account, about the pension that had to stretch for who knew how many more years. Several $100s for someone to tell me the same thing Patricia was telling me now. "Can I take a few days to think about it?" Robert's jaw tightened. "We've been talking about this for weeks, Mom. At some point, you have to make a decision." "Robert." Patricia put a hand on his arm. "Let's give your mother some space. Elizabeth, why don't you hold on to these documents? Read through them. If you have questions, call me. My number's on the card." After they left, I sat with the papers for a long time. I tried to read them, but the language was deliberately confusing, designed for lawyers to understand and regular people to sign without fully comprehending. I called my sister Jane in Boston that night. "He wants me to sign power of attorney," I told her. "Well, that's not necessarily a bad thing," Jane said. "You're 60, Liz. It's good to have these things in place. I did mine last year. But do you think I need it now? Do you think there's something wrong with me?" There was a pause. Has Robert said there's something wrong? He keeps saying I'm forgetful, that I'm leaving things unlocked, losing track of bills. But Jane, I don't think I am. I think I stopped. How could I say it? I think my son is lying to me. I think he's gaslighting me. It sounded insane. You think what? Nothing. Never mind. Liz, if you're having memory problems, you need to see a doctor. And if you're not, then there's no harm in giving Robert power of attorney. He's your son. He loves you. He just wants to help. I hung up feeling more alone than before. The next Saturday, Robert arrived with the papers again. And this time, I signed them. I told myself I was being smart, being prepared. I told myself it was just a precaution, that nothing would change. I was wrong. The first thing I noticed was the bank statements. They stopped coming in the mail. When I called the bank to ask why, they told me that my son, Robert Sterling, had changed the mailing address to his own address in King of Prussia. As my power of attorney, he had the right to do that. But I didn't ask him to do that. I'm sorry, Mom, but according to our records, he has full authority over your accounts. I hung up and sat very still. Full authority. I'd given him full authority. I called Robert. Why did you change my bank statement address? To help you, Mom. You were getting confused by all the paperwork. This way, I can monitor everything and make sure nothing falls through the cracks. I want them sent back to my house. Why? So you can lose them. So they can pile up with all the other papers you're not keeping track of. His voice had an edge now. I'm doing this for your own good. It's my money, Robert. And I'm protecting it. You should be thanking me. He hung up. I sat at my kitchen table and cried for the first time since Richard's funeral. Not loud, dramatic sobs, but quiet tears that slid down my face and dripped onto the blue tablecloth Richard had picked out at a yard sale 15 years ago. Outside, the white rose bush was bare now, its blooms long gone, its branches skeletal against the grey November sky. I thought about calling Jane again. I thought about calling a lawyer, a real one, my own. But what would I say? My son is helping me too much. My son is protecting my money. It would sound ridiculous, ungrateful. And there was another fear, quieter and more terrible. What if Robert was right? What if there was something wrong with me, and I was too far gone to see it? That night, I pulled out my blue notebook and wrote a single line. November 18th. I am not confused. I am not forgetful. I locked the door. I did not move my glasses. Something is wrong, and I need to remember this. I hid the notebook inside my pillowcase, where Robert wouldn't think to look. It was a small act of resistance. A tiny flame of certainty in a world that was trying to convince me I was losing my mind. I didn't know it yet, but that notebook would save my life. December came cold and bitter. I started checking my accounts online. Robert didn't know I'd set up internet banking years ago and Richard was sick and I needed to pay medical bills quickly. I'd log in on my laptop at the kitchen table, my hands shaking as the numbers loaded on the screen. The first withdrawal I noticed was for $5,000. November 29th. The memo line said home repairs. I stared at it. What home repairs? Nothing in my house had been fixed. Nothing had been broken. I called Robert. Oh, that, he said casually. Remember? The roof was leaking. I had someone come patch it. The roof wasn't leaking. Yes, it was. Over the back bedroom. You must not have noticed. I didn't want to worry you, so I just took care of it. I went to the back bedroom after we hung up. I stood there for 20 minutes, looking up at the ceiling. It was perfectly smooth, perfectly white. No water stains. No signs of repair. I took photos with my phone. I didn't know why exactly. I just knew I needed evidence of something, even if it was evidence of nothing. 2 weeks later, another withdrawal. $8,000. Medical consultation fees. I hadn't been to a doctor except for my annual checkup in September. I called the number on my insurance card and asked them to send me a full statement of all claims for the past year. When it arrived 3 days later, there were no claims except the annual physical. No consultations. No fees. $8,000 gone. For medical services I'd never received. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open, my insurance statement spread beside it, and the blue notebook in my lap. I was writing everything down now. Every withdrawal. Every lie. Every time Robert's story didn't match reality. The numbers were adding up. $13,000 in less than a month. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely write. I need help, I wrote. This is theft. My son is stealing from me. The words looked insane on the page. But they were true. I found a lawyer's office 3 blocks from the library. Margolis and Associates. The website said they handled elder law and estate disputes. I made an appointment for the following Tuesday. The office was small, tucked between a dry cleaner and a Vietnamese restaurant. The waiting room had outdated magazines and artificial plants that were dusty enough to show they'd been there for years. A receptionist who looked barely old enough to vote asked me to fill out forms on a clipboard. Mr. Margolis was in his 60s, gray-haired and tired-looking. He gestured me into his office and sat behind a desk covered in files. "What can I do for you, Mrs. Sterling?" I told him everything. The power of attorney I'd signed. The withdrawals I couldn't account for. The way Robert had changed my bank statement address. The things that were moved in my house. The unlocked door. The erosion of my certainty about my own mind. He listened without interrupting, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. "Do you have copies of the power of attorney documents you signed?" "No." Robert kept them. He said he'd file them properly. "Do you have bank statements showing these withdrawals?" "I have screenshots from online banking. And my insurance statement showing no medical claims." "That's good. That's a start." He tapped his pen against the pad. "Mrs. Sterling, what you're describing is financial exploitation. It's a form of elder abuse, and it's more common than most people realize. Especially when the abuser is a family member." Hearing him say it, elder abuse made something crack open in my chest. This was real. This had a name. "Can you help me?" "I can. But I need to be honest with you about what this will involve. First, we'll need to revoke the power of attorney. That requires filing paperwork and notifying your son formally. Second, we'll need to freeze your accounts temporarily and possibly open new ones. Third, if you want to pursue criminal charges or recover the stolen money, that means police reports, investigations, possible court proceedings." He paused. "All of this takes time and money. My retainer for a case like this is $5,000. That's just to start. Depending on how your son responds, this could cost you $15,000, $20,000 before it's resolved." $20,000. Nearly twice what Robert had already stolen. "I don't have that kind of money," I said quietly. "I understand. There are legal aid services that might help, but their wait lists are months long. You could try to handle this yourself, file the revocation documents on your own, contact the police directly. But if your son contests anything, you'll need representation." I stood up. My legs felt unsteady. "Thank you for your time, Mrs. Sterling." He stood too. "I know this seems overwhelming, but doing nothing is also a choice, and it's the choice that lets this continue. Think about it. Call me if you decide to move forward. I walked home in the cold, my coat pulled tight around me. $20,000. I didn't have it. And even if I did, what then? A legal battle against my own son. Court appearances and depositions and lawyers arguing over whether I was competent to manage my own life. Maybe Robert was right. Maybe I should just let him handle everything. Maybe it would be easier. The thought made me sick. That night, I called Jane. I need to tell you something, I said. And I need you to really listen. I told her everything. The withdrawals, the lawyer, the way Robert had been moving things and making me doubt my own memory. I told her about the notebook I'd been keeping, the evidence I'd been gathering. When I finished, there was a long silence. Liz, she said finally, I talked to Robert last week. My stomach dropped. What? He called me. He was worried about you. He said you've been acting paranoid, accusing him of things, getting confused and angry. Her voice was gentle, pitying. He said you've been talking about people moving your things, about conspiracies. He's really concerned. Jane, he's lying to you. Is he? Because what you're telling me sounds exactly like what he warned me about. You think your own son is stealing from you. Liz, that's not rational. I have proof. Bank statements. Insurance records. Robert has power of attorney. He's allowed to manage your accounts. That's what you gave him permission to do. I didn't give him permission to steal from me. You're not listening to yourself. Jane's voice was firm now. You sound exactly like Dad did before he was diagnosed. The paranoia, the accusations. Mom had to put him in memory care because he became convinced everyone was plotting against him. Our father had died of Alzheimer's 15 years ago. I remembered those last years, the way he'd hidden things and forgotten where he put them, the way he'd accused the nursing staff of stealing his belongings. I'm not Dad, I whispered. Maybe you should see a doctor, Liz. A specialist. Let them run some tests. If everything comes back fine, then we can talk about Robert. But right now, I think you need help, and you're not seeing it. She hung up gently, lovingly, like she was tucking a sick child into bed. I sat in the dark kitchen, the phone dead in my hand. Robert had gotten to her first. He'd planted the seeds, shaped the narrative. Now anything I said sounded like proof of exactly what he'd warned her about. I was alone. The notebook was still in my pillowcase, but what good was it? Who would believe me? A 60-year-old widow, with a family history of dementia, accusing her devoted son of theft. I looked at Richard's blue mug on the shelf. The crack was visible if you knew where to look, a thin line running down from the rim, held together by glue and sheer stubbornness. I'd fixed that cup because I couldn't bear to throw it away. Because some things are worth saving even when they're broken. I made a decision then. I would see a doctor. Not because Jane said I should, and not because Robert wanted me to, but because I needed documentation. I needed someone official to confirm that my mind was sound, that I wasn't imagining things. If I was going to fight this, I needed proof that I was capable of fighting at all. The next morning, I called my primary care doctor and asked for a referral to a specialist, a geriatrician, someone who could do a full cognitive assessment. Any particular concerns, Mrs. Sterling? The receptionist asked. I want to make sure everything's working properly, I said. Just to be safe. They scheduled me for January 15th with Drive. Mark Taylor at Penn Medicine. 4 weeks away. I marked it in my calendar. I wrote it in my notebook. I set an alert on my phone. And then I waited. Robert came by twice more before Christmas. Both times he let himself in without knocking. Both times he asked about my confusion and whether I'd thought about seeing a doctor. Actually, I have an appointment scheduled, I told him. January 15th. His face lit up. That's wonderful, Mom. I'm so proud of you for taking this step. I'll drive you there myself. That's not necessary. I insist. I want to be there to talk to the doctor, help them understand what's been going on. Of course he did. He wanted to control the narrative there too. We'll see, I said. After he left, I checked my accounts again. Another $4,000 gone. Household expenses. I took screenshots. I added them to a folder on my laptop. I wrote the date and amount in my notebook. $17,000 now. In less than 2 months. I thought about Mr. Margolis and his $20,000 fee. I thought about Jane, who didn't believe me. I thought about Sally next door, who'd started giving me strange, worried looks whenever we passed on the sidewalk. Robert was building a cage around me, and he was doing it with my own sister's blessing, my neighbor's concern, and the law's permission. But I had a doctor's appointment. I had documentation. I had a notebook full of proof. It wasn't much, but it was something. On Christmas Eve, I stood in my backyard looking at the skeletal white rose bush. The ground was frozen, the branches bare and brittle. But the roots were still there, deep underground, waiting for spring. I would wait too. I would hold on. I would document everything. And in January, I would tell Taylor the truth, whether anyone believed me or not. January 15th arrived cold and clear. I woke up at 6, showered, dressed in my nicest slacks, and a clean sweater. I wanted to look competent, put together. I wanted Taylor to see a functional woman, not someone losing her grip on reality. I made coffee in Richard's blue mug for the first time in 2 years. I don't know why. Maybe I needed him with me somehow. Robert arrived at 8:30. He was wearing a tie, like he was going to a business meeting. He smiled when I opened the door. Ready, Mom? Yes. The drive to Penn Medicine took 40 minutes. Robert talked the whole way, casual chit-chat about work, about the weather, about a restaurant he'd tried. Normal son things. As if he hadn't stolen $17,000 from me. As if he wasn't driving me to a doctor to prove I was incompetent. I kept my hands folded in my lap and said nothing. Taylor's office was on the 3rd floor. The waiting room was painted a soft blue, with landscape photographs on the walls. An older couple sat in the corner, the wife doing a crossword puzzle while her husband stared at the wall. That could be me soon, I thought. If Robert gets his way. A nurse called my name. Robert stood up with me. I'd like to speak with the doctor privately first, I said. Mom, I should be there. I can help explain. I'm 60 years old, Robert. I can talk to my own doctor. The nurse looked between us. It's the patient's choice, she said gently. You're welcome to wait here, and the doctor may invite you in later if Mrs. Sterling consents. Robert's jaw tightened. But he sat back down. I followed the nurse to an examination room. She took my blood pressure, my temperature, asked me basic questions. Then she left me alone. I sat on the paper-covered table, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Taylor knocked and entered. He was younger than I expected, maybe mid-40s, with kind eyes and graying hair at his temples. Mrs. Sterling. I'm Taylor. I understand your primary care physician referred you for a cognitive assessment. Yes. Can you tell me what prompted this? Any specific concerns you've been having? This was it. The moment that would determine everything. I could tell him what Robert wanted me to say. That I'd been forgetful, confused, losing things. I could let this happen, Let Robert take over completely, stop fighting. Or I could tell the truth. My son is stealing from me, I said. And he's trying to make everyone think I'm losing my mind so he can get away with it. Drive. Taylor's expression didn't change. He pulled up a stool and sat down, his hands folded in his lap. Tell me more. So I did. I told him everything. The power of attorney, the withdrawals, the things moved in my house. The way Robert had called my sister and planted seeds of doubt. The way I'd been keeping a notebook because I was so afraid of forgetting, so afraid that maybe everyone was right, and I was the one who was wrong. I told him about the lawyer I couldn't afford, about Jane, who didn't believe me, about the cage closing in. Drive. Taylor listened without interrupting. He took notes, but his eyes never left my face. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Mrs. Sterling, I'm going to do a full cognitive assessment. It's a series of tests: memory, problem solving, attention, language skills. It takes about an hour. Regardless of what's happening with your son, it's important we have a baseline of your cognitive function. Are you comfortable with that? Yes. The tests were harder than I expected. Remembering lists of words, drawing shapes, solving puzzles, counting backward from 100 by sevens. My hands were sweating. My mind kept wandering to Robert in the waiting room, wondering what he was thinking, what he was planning. But I focused. I pushed through. When it was over, drive. Taylor reviewed the results. Mrs. Sterling, your cognitive function is completely normal. Better than normal, actually. Your memory is excellent, your problem-solving skills are strong, and there's no indication whatsoever of dementia or any cognitive impairment. I started crying. I couldn't help it. Relief flooded through me so intensely I thought I might fall off the table. I'm not crazy, I whispered. No, you're not. He handed me a tissue. And I'm very concerned about what you've told me. What you're describing sounds like financial exploitation and psychological abuse. I'm required by law to report suspected elder abuse. With your permission, I'd like to contact Adult Protective Services. Yes, please. I'm also going to write a detailed report documenting your cognitive status and our conversation today. You'll get a copy. Keep it somewhere safe. Thank you. I wiped my eyes. Robert is in the waiting room. He'll want to talk to you. I'll speak with him. But I won't tell him anything you don't want me to share. What would you like me to say? Tell him the tests came back normal. Tell him there's nothing wrong with me. Drive. Taylor nodded. I can do that. He brought Robert into the office. I sat there while drive. Taylor explained, in calm professional language, that my cognitive function was completely normal, that there was no evidence of dementia or memory impairment, that I was fully capable of managing my own affairs. Robert's face went very still. Are you sure? Because at home, the tests are comprehensive and reliable. Drive. Taylor said, your mother is cognitively healthy. I'd like a second opinion. That's certainly your right. But I'm all confident in my assessment. Robert looked at me, really looked at me. And for the first time, I saw something I'd never seen before in my son's eyes. Hatred. Pure, cold hatred. Let's go, Mom, he said. The drive home was silent. Robert's hands were tight on the steering wheel, his knuckles white. I could feel rage radiating off him like heat. We pulled into my driveway. I reached for the door handle. You told him, didn't you? Robert said. Not a question. A statement. I told him the truth. The truth. He laughed, sharp and bitter. You just couldn't keep your mouth shut. You had to go and make yourself look like a victim. I am a victim. You've stolen $17,000 from me. I've been managing your finances. That's what power of attorney means. You've been stealing. There's a difference. He turned to face me fully. You ungrateful bitch. After everything I've done for you, all the time I've spent dealing with your mess, making sure you don't destroy yourself. And this is how you repay me. I'd never heard him talk like this. Never seen this version of my son. I want you to transfer the power of attorney back to me, I said. And I want you to return the money you've taken. Or what? You'll call the police? You'll sue me? He smiled. Go ahead. Try it. See how far you get. Who's going to believe you? Jane doesn't. Sally doesn't. You're a lonely old widow with a family history of dementia, making wild accusations against her devoted son. Good luck with that. He got out of the car and walked around to my side, opened the door. Come on. Let's get you inside. Something in his voice made my skin crawl. But what choice did I have? This was my house. I lived here. I got out of the car. He followed me to the front door. I unlocked it, stepped inside. He came in behind me and closed the door. Robert, I think you should leave. I'm not going anywhere. He locked the deadbolt. We need to have a conversation about your behavior. Please leave my house. Your house. He moved closer. This is my house. It's in my name now. Did you forget? You signed it over to me 3 weeks ago. The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. When you signed those papers Patricia brought. You really should read things more carefully before you sign them, Mom. My mind raced back to November, to the papers on the coffee table, the legal language I couldn't understand. Had there been a property transfer in there? Had I signed away my home without realizing it? That's fraud, I said. I didn't understand what I was signing. Prove it. He was very close now. Patricia has notes documenting your confusion, your inability to understand basic legal concepts. The notary can testify that you seemed disoriented. You're the one who signed, Mom. You can't take it back now. I backed away from him. Get out. I don't think so. He grabbed my arm. His grip was iron. You've become a real problem, you know that. I had this all planned out. You were supposed to just fade quietly, sign what I needed, maybe end up in a nice facility somewhere while I sold the house. But you had to go and make trouble. Let go of me? He dragged me toward the kitchen. I tried to pull away, but he was so much stronger. Robert, stop. You're hurting me. He shoved me toward the pantry, the small storage closet off the kitchen where I kept dry goods and canned food. I stumbled, caught myself against the doorframe. Get in. What? Get in the pantry. No. He pushed me hard. I fell backward into the small space, hitting the shelves, cans clattering to the floor. You want to tell people I'm abusing you? Fine. Let's give you something real to complain about. He slammed the door. I heard the lock click. Robert. Robert, let me out. No answer. I pounded on the door. Robert. This isn't funny. Let me out right now. I heard his footsteps walking away. Heard the front door open and close. Then silence. I was alone in the dark. The pantry was maybe 4 feet by 6 feet. Shelves on 3 sides, filled with canned goods, boxes of pasta, bags of rice. No window. No light switch on the inside. I felt for my phone in my pocket. Gone. I'd left my purse in the living room. I pounded on the door again. Help. Somebody help me. But the walls were thick, and Sally next door was half deaf. The chances of anyone hearing me were almost zero. I sank to the floor, my back against the shelves. This couldn't be happening. This couldn't be real. My son had locked me in a closet in my own home. I sat there in the dark, my breath coming in short gasps, trying not to panic. There was food in here. Water bottles on the bottom shelf. I wouldn't starve. Not immediately. But how long did he plan to keep me here? Hours passed. I know because I counted them, marking time by the ache in my back, the numbness in my legs. I heard the front door open around what I guessed was evening. Footsteps in the kitchen. Robert. I called. Please let me out. We can talk about this. The footsteps paused outside the pantry door. Here's how this is going to work, Mom. His voice was calm, almost pleasant. You're going to stay in there for a while. A few days, maybe a week. Until you calm down and start thinking clearly. I'll bring you food and water. You won't die. But you will have time to reconsider your choices. You can't do this. This is kidnapping. It's discipline. It's keeping you safe from yourself. And when I let you out, if I let you out, you're going to sign whatever I need you to sign. You're going to tell everyone you were confused, that you made a mistake with that doctor. And then we'll move you somewhere where you can get the care you obviously need. I'll tell the police. I'll tell everyone what you did. Who's going to believe you? He laughed. You'll sound insane. And by the time I'm done, you'll have a documented history of delusions and instability. I'll be the concerned son who tried everything to help his mentally ill mother. People will feel sorry for me. I heard him walk away. I screamed until my throat was raw. No one came. That first night was the longest of my life. I couldn't stretch out fully, couldn't see my hand in front of my face. The darkness was absolute, suffocating. I rationed the water bottles. I ate crackers from a box on the shelf. I tried to keep track of time, but it blurred together. Robert came twice a day. I could hear him outside the door. Sometimes he'd slide a bottle of water underneath, or a granola bar. Sometimes he'd just stand there, silent, letting me know he was in control. Please, I begged. Please let me out. I'll do whatever you want. Not yet, Mom. You're not ready yet. On the third day, I think it was the third day, I noticed something strange. The water he'd given me that morning tasted off. Bitter. Chemical. I spit it out. He was drugging me. I dumped the rest of the bottle onto the floor and drank from the older bottles I'd found on the shelf, the ones that had been there before he locked me in. I started to understand. He wanted me confused, disoriented. He wanted me to actually lose my mind so that when he finally let me out, I'd be proof of everything he'd claimed. I thought about Drive. Taylor. Had he contacted Adult Protective Services? Would anyone come looking for me? I thought about the notebook in my pillowcase, the screenshots on my laptop, the insurance statements. I'd left evidence. If someone came to the house, if someone looked, they'd find proof. I had to believe that. I had to hold on to that hope. Because it was all I had left. I sat in the dark, hungry and thirsty and terrified, and I made myself a promise. If I survived this, I would tell everyone. I would make sure my son never had the chance to do this to anyone else. If I survived. I lost track of time in that pantry. Days blurred into nights. Sleep came in fragments, my body slumped against the shelves, my neck bent at angles that made everything ache. I rationed the water bottles I could trust, the ones that tasted clean. I ate crackers and canned peaches I opened with my keys, scraping the fruit out with my fingers in the dark. Robert came and went. Sometimes I heard him in the kitchen, making coffee, talking on the phone. Living his normal life while I sat locked in a closet 10 feet away. I stopped begging. Stopped screaming. I saved my energy. I thought about Richard, about the white rose bush he'd planted, about the blue mug with its careful crack, held together by glue and stubbornness. I thought about Drive, Taylor, about the report he'd written, the phone call he'd promised to make. And I waited. On what I think was the 6th day, I heard voices. Not just Robert. Multiple people. A woman's voice, firm and professional. A man's voice, deeper, authoritative. Mr. Sterling, we need to come inside. We have a court order for a welfare check on Elizabeth Sterling. My mother's not here. She's visiting my aunt in Boston. Then you won't mind if we verify that. Actually, I do mind. This is harassment. My mother is fine. She's just. Sir, step aside. We're coming in whether you cooperate or not. I heard the front door open. Footsteps. Multiple sets. I gathered what strength I had left and pounded on the pantry door. Help! I'm in here. Help me. The footsteps rushed toward the kitchen. Someone tried the door handle. Mrs. Sterling. Are you in there? Yes. Please. He locked me in. Stand back from the door if you can. I pressed myself into the corner. There was a crash, the sound of wood splintering. Light flooded in, so bright after days of darkness that I had to shield my eyes. 2 people stood in the doorway. A woman in her 50s with a badge clipped to her belt. A police officer, his hand still on the doorframe from where he'd forced the lock. Mrs. Sterling. The woman knelt beside me. I'm Carol Martinez with Adult Protective Services. We're here to help you. Can you stand? I tried. My legs buckled. The officer caught me. They helped me out of the pantry into the kitchen. The light was overwhelming. Everything was too bright, too loud. Robert stood by the refrigerator, his face pale. She locked herself in there. She's been having episodes. I was trying to get her to come out, but she. Save it, the officer said. We'll talk at the station. The paramedics arrived. They checked my vital signs, shone lights in my eyes, asked me questions I could barely process. When was the last time I'd eaten? Had I been given any medications? Was I in pain? They loaded me into an ambulance. Carol rode with me, holding my hand. Drive. Taylor called us, she said. He was worried when you didn't show up for your follow-up appointment. When we tried to do a welfare check, your son said you were traveling. But Drive. Taylor knew something was wrong. He pushed us to get a court order. My notebook, I whispered. In my bedroom. Under the pillow. And my laptop. There's evidence. We'll find it. Don't worry. You're safe now. At the hospital, they ran tests. Blood work showed benzodiazepines in my system, sedatives I'd never been prescribed. Dehydration. Malnutrition. Bruises on my arms where Robert had grabbed me. The police came to take my statement. I told them everything. They took photos of the pantry, of the splintered lock, of the water bottles Robert had contaminated. They found my notebook. They found my laptop with all the screenshots. They found the documents Patricia had brought, the ones I'd signed without understanding. The property transfer was there, buried in legal language, transferring my house to Robert's name. But they also found something I hadn't known about. A life insurance policy on me, taken out 3 months ago, with Robert as the beneficiary. $500,000. The detective who told me this looked grim. Mrs. Sterling, I don't think your son planned to let you out of that pantry. The thought should have devastated me. But I was too numb, too exhausted to feel anything except a distant, cold certainty. My son had been willing to let me die for money. Jane flew in from Boston the next day. She came to my hospital room with tears streaming down her face. Liz, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't believe you. I looked at her. My baby sister who doubted me when I needed her most. He fooled you, I said. He fooled everyone. I should have known. I should have listened. You're here now. She helped me through everything that came next. The police investigation. The criminal charges: kidnapping, false imprisonment, elder abuse, financial exploitation, attempted murder. The lawyers who helped me void the power of attorney, and the fraudulent property transfer. The trial took 9 months. Robert pleaded not guilty, claimed I'd locked myself in the pantry during one of my episodes, that he'd been trying to help me, that I was mentally unstable and had fabricated everything out of spite. But the evidence was overwhelming. Drive. Taylor's cognitive assessment showing I was completely sound. The benzodiazepines in my blood that I'd never been prescribed. The withdrawals from my accounts with fake receipts. The life insurance policy. The notebook I'd kept, documenting everything with dates and details. The jury took 4 hours to convict him on all counts. The judge sentenced him to 8 years in prison. I sat in the courtroom and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no relief. Just emptiness where my son used to be. Jane drove me home after the sentencing. We pulled into my driveway, and I looked at the house. My house, legally mine again. The place where I'd lived for 30 years, where I'd raised Robert, where Richard had died, where I'd been locked in a closet by my own child. Do you want to sell it? Jane asked gently. Move somewhere new? No, I said. This is my home. I'm not letting him take that from me too. Over the next few weeks, I reclaimed the space. I painted the kitchen walls a soft yellow, the color of morning light. I replaced the pantry door with open shelving so I could see everything, so nothing could be hidden, so no one could lock me in ever again. I took Richard's blue mug down from the shelf and ran my finger along the crack. Still there, still visible, still holding together. Some things break. And some things, when they break, become stronger in the mending. I started volunteering at the senior center, leading a support group for elder abuse survivors. There were more of us than I'd ever imagined. So many people with stories like mine: children who stole, spouses who controlled, caregivers who exploited. We sat in a circle once a week and told our truths. We witnessed each other's pain. We reminded each other that we were not crazy, not difficult, not deserving of what had been done to us. I told them about the notebook, about Drive, Taylor, about the moment the pantry door opened and light came flooding in. Sally from next door apologized to me one afternoon, standing on my porch with tears in her eyes. I should have known something was wrong. I should have checked on you. He fooled you too, I said. He was very good at it. But I also learned to set boundaries. I didn't forgive everyone who doubted me. I didn't have to. Forgiveness is not required for healing. Some relationships were too damaged to repair. And that was okay. Spring came. The white rose bush bloomed again, just like it had every year since Richard planted it. White petals against green leaves, the scent drifting through my open kitchen window. I sat at my table with coffee in Richard's mug and looked at the roses. Proof that beauty comes back. That life continues. That roots hold even through the harshest winters. I'm 62 now. I still live in my house in Fishtown. I still walk to the Italian market on Tuesdays and Fridays. I still read to children at the library on Thursdays. But I'm different. Harder in some ways, softer in others. I know now that family is not a shield against harm. That love does not guarantee safety. That sometimes the people who are supposed to protect us are the ones we need protection from. I know that asking for help is not weakness. That keeping records is not paranoia. That trusting your own mind, your own truth, is the most important thing you can do. I know that even when you're locked in the dark, even when no one believes you, even when you're exhausted and terrified and ready to give up, someone might be looking for you. A doctor who pays attention, a social worker who cares, a system that, sometimes, works the way it's supposed to. I carry the notebook with me still, though I don't need it anymore. It sits in my purse as a reminder. I was right. I was sane. I knew what was happening to me. And I survived. If you're reading this, if you're hearing my story, and you recognize something in it, if someone is making you doubt yourself, taking your money, controlling your life, making you feel crazy, please know this. You are not imagining it. You are not being difficult. You are not too sensitive or confused or ungrateful. Document everything. Tell someone you trust. Find a professional who will listen. And if the first person doesn't believe you, find another one. Keep looking until someone hears you. You deserve to be safe. You deserve to be believed. You deserve to live in your own home, manage your own money, make your own choices, even if you make mistakes, even if you're not perfect, even if, especially if the person hurting you is family. Because family is not an excuse for abuse. Love is not a justification for control. And you do not owe anyone access to your life, your body, or your bank account, no matter what they've done for you, no matter who they are. The pantry door is open now. The light is flooding in. And I am never, ever going back into the dark. I'm living proof that you can survive the unthinkable. That broken things can be mended. That even at 60, even after loss and betrayal and days locked in darkness, you can reclaim your life and build something new. The white roses are blooming. The coffee is hot in my mended blue mug. And I am here, free and whole and mine again. That's enough. That's everything. Thank you for listening to my story. I know it wasn't easy to hear, but I hope it helps someone out there who needs to know they're not alone. If you found meaning in what I shared today, I'd be grateful if you'd subscribe to the Grandparents Memories and Life channel, give this video a like, and turn on notifications. There are so many more stories like mine that need to be told, so many voices that deserve to be heard. Together, we can break the silence. Together, we can help each other find the light. Thank you. And remember, you are stronger than you know.